Avatar has always stood out for being a show with actual depth in its characters, storytelling, and lessons. Going beyond rudimental themes typically found in kids' television, Avatar isn't afraid to tackle some deeper topics, really respecting the intellect of its viewers regardless of age. I've taught writing and I've watched this series with classes of different ages, letting me really see this show through a lens of multiple age groups. So I gathered every single emotional moment to rank them. To make it on the list, it has to do these two things. One or more characters have to be in a vulnerable state, and it needs to either have a life lesson, develop a character, or in many cases, both. Earlier episodes tend to focus more on themes, while later episodes are more character-driven, so my analysis will reflect that. We are going in chronological order, starting with episode 3. Aang discovers the skeleton of Gyatso triggering his avatar state. Now, throwing in the concept of the destruction of entire culture and its people is indeed deep, but it happens so early in the series and is resolved quickly, it's hard to fully grasp the weight of this topic. We barely know Aang at this point and almost nothing about the airbending culture to really care more than a decent person should. I know they had to cover this earlier than later, but this scene would have hit so much harder later in the show. B tier. While imprisoned, Katara gives a speech about courage and freedom to rally up the Earthbenders, just to have the speech followed by complete silence. I think this moment does a great job of showing how circumstance can completely shatter one's hope. I think it was a great message to go against the constant sugar-coated theme found on kids' TV with a more realistic approach. Things aren't always peachy, and a speech at the end of the day can just dress up a bad situation. B tier.
Let us fight for our freedom!
Episode 10 involves Katara getting love blinded by the smooth talker Jet. Don't let a romantic interest blind you with charisma is a wonderful life lesson, but most, even younger viewers, are already aware of this danger. Probably because it's a message you see on a lot of kids' television already. Still, manipulative relationships are a real thing. Jet's manipulation is just really obvious to everyone. The writers don't even try to hide it, so I don't think it hits as hard as it should. C tier.
Where's Sokka?
Katara.
Zuko has to fight his own father for speaking out of turn, begs for mercy, gets scarred, and is then banished for showing weakness, and it's tragic to see. For younger viewers, I've seen this episode start to confuse them, in a good way. It makes them feel really divided. Here was this villain they were booing and calling names, then out of nowhere they start to feel sorry for him. It's an incredibly powerful message. People may seem evil on the outside, but most times it's more nuanced than that. Teaching anyone, especially younger viewers, about nuance is the most single important theme Avatar covers. I could go on, but simply put, we don't always know what someone is dealing with behind the scenes. S tier.
And suffering will be your teacher.
The storm also follows Aang and his past as well. The episode does a great job of letting us get to know Gyatso. It helps us feel the same pain Aang does when he overhears that he is being taken away from Gyatso's care. Feeling powerless, Aang does the only thing he can do, run away. Feeling that you have no control over a bad situation is common, especially for children, and this scene parallels separation from a parent. Many people that went through a divorce can instantly feel the desperation Aang does. This is further compounded by the fact that Aang blames himself for the loss of his people, just like how many children of divorce homes feel like they are somehow to blame. A powerful theme that's relatable and not always covered in media. A tier.
If you had stayed, you would have been killed along with all the other airbenders. You don't know that.
At the end of the Blue Spirit, Aang tries to explain how he used to be friends with a firebender, hoping for some vulnerability from Zuko. Zuko, still very much entrenched in his nation's beliefs, responds with an attack, not even giving Aang's proposal a thought, at least in the moment. Later, he briefly does. This is the first time we see Zuko, at least internally, question his worldview. Of course, it will be a long time before he starts questioning it again, but this makes the scene that much more powerful. Preconceived ideas of the world are always hard to properly challenge, and it takes time. Aang also starts to realize how outer world circumstances can affect or prevent personal relationships. Very mature themes here, A tier.
Did you make any new friends?
No, I don't think I did.
We know how this goes. Aang gets Hakoda's letter and hides it from the others. This episode gets a lot of flack because it seems so out of pocket for Aang. It was a stupid mistake and really dumb for Aang to do, but that's kind of the point. When he hid the letter, he was in a vulnerable spot. People, especially kids, do pretty dumb things when they aren't in a good headspace, and this episode does a good job relating to that. Not super deep, you see this theme in a lot of media already, but it's a good reminder for kids. C tier.
You have to understand. How's a freedom?
This is the map to our father! You had it the whole time? How could you?
Here we have Aang making a pretty dumb mistake again. He gets impatient with firebending and burns Katara. Similar to the last episode, it's a common lesson for kids that's pretty shallow and predictable. The best moment is actually how we get to see Sokka respond to the situation. Having this episode right after Aang's last blunder doesn't do it any favors either, but sure, it's a good reminder for kids. C tier.
What did you do?
It was an accident. I was, Katara, I'm so...
In episode 17, Aang visits the Northern Temple just to realize that all the structures and morals are littered with gunk and pipes. Aang gets upset, but then the theme here gets blurred. I'm going to write a video about how I think the writers dropped the ball on this episode's nuanced message, but for now, I'm just placing in D tier. During the Book 1 final, Zhao plays God and slays the Moon Spirit. Yue sacrifices herself to restore balance, and we have our first pseudo-death in the series. Yue gets screen time for us to get to know her, but unfortunately, she's kind of a one-note character, therefore the scene does not hit as hard as it could. However, losing someone you love is a great growth moment for Sokka, the fadeaway kiss is also wonderfully done, and it shows that the series isn't afraid of killing off characters. B tier.
I'll always be with you.
During Zuko and Iroh's new journey through the Earth Kingdom, they quickly stumble upon a family affected by the Fire Nation. This is the first time Zuko has ever communicated intimately with anyone outside of his own nation, and immediately his values are self-challenged. Being aware of an eternal struggle is the first step in solving it, but Avartar knows to take his time with Zuko's arc and has him go out of his way to make a statement that he hasn't gone soft. The hand grab was a great touch as well, as it shows how thick Zuko's walls really are. B tier.
It's okay. They've hurt me too.
Toph's debut opens the series to lessons of disabilities and shortcomings in general, and how we can overcome them with enough determination. A typical but fine lesson on its own. However, instead of having her parents encourage her to persevere, they do the opposite and baby her. Once they see that she is capable on her own, they double down on the control. Her controlling parents are intertwined with her disability, making Toph's situation so much harder than it needs to be. And this is something that Avartar does great. They show the viewer imperfect parenting, even if the parents mean well. B tier.
I'm sorry, Toph. I'm sorry too. Goodbye, Aang.
Zuko alone has been discussed and picked apart so many times there isn't really much I could add. The episode itself is a masterpiece and is too grand to discuss here. You know you have a great character when you need and can devote an entire episode into their backstory. There isn't much more I can say without going over his entire arc, so we're just going to place it in S tier and move on.
Where is she?
At the end of Bitter Work, we are met with the scene of Zuko hitting rock bottom. We finally get to see adult Zuko put down his walls for the first time in the series, and in Zuko fashion, he breaks down in anger and angst. Of course, we know this comes from a place of frustration and pain, which is confirmed once he begins to cry. We've all been to this point in life where we feel like we've hit our lowest of lows, and it seems like life is purposely out to get us. Even the hardest exteriors break under constant pressure. A tier.
Come on! Strike me! You've never held back before!
The arc of losing Appa lasts a handful of episodes. Aang goes through different grief-like stages, starting out with anger, then stifling his emotions, and finally getting to a realistic mindset where he can be the most productive. The creators do a great job of visually showing how upset Aang is over this, and it's good we got to see him at his worst. It makes it feel more real. B tier.
And now it's like you don't care about him at all.
You saw what I did out there. I was so angry about losing Appa, I couldn't control myself.
On the Serpent's Path, Sokka becomes overprotective of Suki, leading to a great scene where he confesses to her that he lost someone he cared about. Past traumas can lead to behaviors like overprotectiveness, so it's a solid theme. However, what really makes this a great scene is the juxtaposition of the moon behind them when they go in for the kiss. The creators really had a perfect opportunity for a kissing scene like this, and they did not let us down. A tier.
I can't.
I'm sorry.
No, you shouldn't be.
Next, we have the Tales of Ba Sing Se. First is Katara and Toph's story. It's a pretty straightforward setup. Mean girls being mean. Toph talks about not needing to care about her appearance. Katara compliments her personality. Common theme, but never a bad one. C tier.
I'm not looking for anyone's approval. I know who I am.
The next tale is for Iroh. Iroh is a character that so many other characters lean on throughout the series. He is Zuko's bedrock and a guidance to the other cast members when given the chance. Leading up to the scene, Iroh also helps out many types of people, regardless of background. Then says,
Only I could have helped you.
That line hits hard as he weeps through his song. The execution here nails it, perfectly pulling on our heartstrings. It's clear how wise Iroh has become since his time as general. It's tragic that it took the death of his son to really get Iroh on the right path, but this lets Iroh achieve empathy, and through his actions, it's clear that he lives every day redeeming himself through positive means. S tier. Appa's Lost Days was designed to just stab us right through the heart. I really don't have much to say since there isn't really a moral. It's just really sad. Every year a handful of students cry over this episode, so I think it needs to go in A tier.
You're still full of love. But fear has moved in where trust should be.
Jet's death is one that would hit harder than you originally think. I know a lot of people don't love Jet as a character, but this show does a good job showing how much Jet at least tried to move on from his retributive nature, just to be manipulated as a pawn for the Dai Li. B tier.
He's lying.
Iroh confronts Zuko underneath Lake Logai. The scene plays out wonderfully as Iroh, after being so patient with Zuko, finally gives him some tough love. This is only 1 or 2 times we get to see Iroh put his foot down, and it's done so well. Mako's delivery here is perfect as Iroh tells Zuko to follow his own destiny. We all can be influenced greatly by people around us, and this is a good life lesson to stop, think, and differentiate what beliefs are our own and what beliefs come from negative influences. S tier.
Begin asking yourself the big questions. Who are you? And what do you want?
When Aang visits the Guru, they go over many themes to open up all his chakras. They go by pretty fast, and many of them are already themes that the show covers, but I'd say the best one is the loss of his people, and how the Guru points out that love itself is never lost, it just takes new form. The show does a great job visualizing the loss this time around, and now that we know Aang better, we can have more sympathy for him, contrasting the second episode. A tier.
The air nomad's love for you has not left this world. It is still inside of your heart and is reborn in the form of new love.
Sokka and Hakoda's reunion is great to see, and it lets us see where many of Sokka's values come from. Nothing special here, just a great moment for Sokka, and it's nice to see a supportive father figure for a change. C tier.
Sokka. Hi, Dad.
Zuko gets thrown into the crystal cave with Katara. Katara throws Zuko's mistakes back at him and finishes with the line that the Fire Nation took her mother away, but this creates some common ground. Katara is quick to open up after. I would say her willingness to be so open with him this quickly would take away from the scene, but it turns into a subplot a season later, showing that sure, Katara is quick to see the good in people, but she's not an idiot. The fool me once, fool me twice idea. Oh, and the Aang glare at the end, so good. A tier.
The Fire Nation took my mother away from me.
I'm sorry. That's something we have in common.
Aang, feeling guilty about losing Ba Sing Se, heads off into a storm to do something. We can see him slipping backwards as he blows up at Katara and starts sounding like Season 1 Zuko. It's understandable how frustrated he has to be after losing such an important loss, but the execution was done somewhat poorly. Aang really has no plan. We viewers aren't even sure what he's really trying to do here. Even when he talks to Avartar Roku and Yue to gain motivation, he really only uses it to get out of the mess he put himself in. He comes to a realistic conclusion that staying and hiding is the best course of action and symbolically lets his glider burn. There's a lot happening here and it feels grand, but it's really just him storming off for a few hours. So I'm kind of torn on this one. I'd say low B tier.
I'm not gonna make it. I failed.
In the same episode, Katara breaks down about missing her father. She's mad at her father for leaving her, but understands the circumstances. It's a relatable feeling for many people, and Katara sums it up perfectly. The conversation transitions from Aang to her dad smoothly and naturally. Katara crying in a storm in the arms of her father creates a great scene, and really that's what she needed, to let her frustrations out and vent. Life circumstances are hard, and sometimes that's all that can be done. Her dad missing out on her childhood is something that she can never get back. I've had students in fatherless homes for one reason or another, and this scene always hits home for them. S tier.
How could you leave us, Dad? I mean, I know we had Gran and she loved us, but we were just so lost without you.
Next, we have a scene where the Fire Nation gang opens up about their problems. This scene hits upon multiple negative upbringings. Each could be a theme on their own, but they are rapid fired at you pretty quickly. Zuko and Zula's problems are brought up elsewhere, but Ty Lee's and May's self-expression problems are good to air out before they betray Zula later this season. Zuko firebending the campfire for the scene to become softer in tone as the fire goes out is a good visual representation of the conversation. Some parts of the scene, however, do feel forced, and it took a lot of awkwardly placed lines to be sure that Azula wasn't out of character. Low A tier.
Everything should be perfect, right? I should be happy now. But I'm not. I'm angrier than ever and I don't know why.
Next, we have Sokka's and Toph's conversation about Katara's motherly behavior. Sokka goes as far as saying that he doesn't even remember what his mother looks like and that Katara has replaced that spot. Toph expresses how Katara understands her more than her own mother. These are deep realizations these two are expressing, and this scene does a great job to further build up these characters. Motherless homes with a female sibling will usually go this way, so it was great that the show got a chance to tackle this theme. Katara sinking farther into the lake is a great visual touch as well. A tier.
But honestly, I'm not sure I can remember what my mother looked like. It really seems like my whole life, Katara's been the one looking out for me.
At the end of Puppet Master, Katara is forced to use bloodbending to stop Hama from hurting Aang and Sokka. Having Katara crying at the end really sells the idea that bloodbending is a dark art and that Katara places morals over power. This opens up the conversation of what is deemed unethical and if war would be a reason to cross that line. B tier.
Congratulations, Katara. You're a bloodbender.
Next, we have Zuko using the eclipse to talk 101 to his father. We finally get to see Zuko break away from his past, and this final talk gives great closure. Zuko plays well off of Ozai's wit, creating very good dialogue, and we learn about what really happened that night his mother vanished. The conversation was a bait to kill Zuko, making it a natural and clever way to get the information out of Ozai, the only character that would know exactly what happened that night. Zuko symbolically rejects Ozai's lightning to Ozai's surprise, a great ending to a great scene. A tier.
Think again. I am going to speak my mind, and you are going to listen.
At the end of Bowling Rock, May switches sides to save Zuko. The stare down between Azula and May builds great tension, while May confirms that Azula miscalculated. This gets under Azula's skin, and it's really the first time we see anyone do so. What makes this so great is that May has the perfect personality, and probably the only personality in the show that could challenge Azula's demeanor like this. Right when they're about to fight, Ty Lee surprisingly attacks Azula, and at this point we start to see Azula crack and show some human emotion for the first time. A tier.
Them somewhere I'll never have to see their faces again, and let them rot.
Southern Raiders follows Katara's revengeful quest to find the man who killed her mother. From the argument between the cast about values to Katara's brutal one-liner at Sokka, it's nice to see all these characters getting a chance to hash out their beliefs. Of course, the show ultimately doesn't support violence, but it creates a respect for the nuance of the problem. There are also many great moments from this episode, like Zuko finding out that Katara can bloodbend, the fact that she was so angry to do so in the first place, to stopping the rainfall, to how Zuko flips Aang's narrative on him for a perfect segue into the final. S tier.
You did the right thing. Forgiveness is the first step you have to take to begin healing.
But I didn't forgive him. I'll never forgive him.
We are in the home stretch with a handful of moments from the final. First, we have Zuko and Iroh's reunion. The pulling for the hug, to how proud Iroh is. The scene is so good. Zuko finished his journey a few episodes back, but we finally get to see the payoff, and it was definitely worth the wait. S tier.
I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you lost your way.
Next is Azula's mental breakdown. It's clear her past trauma was resurfaced when May and Ty Lee betrayed her. Her one tool she had to create stability in her life, fear, is no longer her silver bullet. She has no idea how to be a leader using any other means like rapport, and it's literally driving her insane. Now that she's no longer naive enough to think fear is the solution to all her problems, she's left to either double down on her delusion or let go of the control that she thought she had. Neither are great choices for her mentally at this time. Her mother in the mirror was also such a great way to show this scene. S tier.
Even you fear me.
No, I love you, Azula. I do.
Next, we have Sokka's and Toph's near-death experience. It has Sokka's famous line that is perfect for the moment as tears roll down Toph's face and her hand starts to slip. It's a great moment, but it's also a bit rushed. I understand just having the firebender stand there would be awkward, but maybe instead of having more men come, the metal they were on could have started to bend or break off. Either way, it would have hit harder if we could have sat in the moment longer. It's also hard to do near-death situations with main cast members, as we know in the back of our minds that they're not really going to die. Still solid though, I'd say high B tier.
I don't think Boomerang is coming back, Toph. It looks like this is the end.
Zuko and Zula's final fight with somber music in the background was such a great choice by the creators. Any analysis of this fight would be pure speculation, but it's a solid inference that the music represents how sad and messed up this whole situation is. Both of these, remind you, teenagers have gone through so much turmoil, and the actions of their family lineage has made them victims destined to fight one another. It's also clever to do a fight this way to separate from the other climaxes that are happening. S tier. And here we have the final theme of the show: is violence never the answer? It's good to see Aang bring up this idea just to have it shut down by every avatar he talks to. Here we have this kid asking for guidance from centuries worth of past life wisdom just to trust his own gut and do it his way. This happens all the time growing up, and sure, a lot of time older influences are wiser and have great answers, but at the end of the day, you are growing up to be your own person with your own thoughts. And yeah, I know this had the random line turtle cop-out, but that aside, I think this was a great way to tackle the ending. The only knockoff I give it is the fact that Aang had no issue killing Ozai during the solar eclipse, and I doubt a single line from Zuko could trigger this whole dilemma. Overall, A tier. Lastly, we have Katara's and Aang's relationship. I have mixed feelings for the two. Having your main protagonist have a love interest seems like a must for any long-form series, but their relationship is so come and go. There will be a couple episodes that progresses just for it to be ignored for half of a season. Now, I'd rather have that than pointless reminders of their relationship, and it does make sense that it takes a back burner when there are bigger things to address, and they even acknowledge that in the show. I personally just don't think it adds or takes away from the show. It's just kind of there. But the final scene and the final kiss always gets a great reaction, so what do I know? High B tier. And there you go. This did take longer than I thought, so I'll be done talking. Subscribe for more Avatar content and have a good one. Peace.